Well, the incredible thing about Sequoyah is that in 5,000 years of human civilization, people have been keeping records around the world. In all those records, there's no individual who could not read or write in another language that had ever created a writing system by themselves. Sequoyah never got a formal education. He was illiterate. And he, by himself, over a 12-year period, creates a writing system. Sequoyah was a Cherokee. He was born here in the village of Tuskegee around circa 1776. He grew up and spent 12 years of his life trying to create a writing system in the Cherokee language for the Cherokees, which he did finish in 1821 with the creation of the Cherokee Syllabary. As a child, he would build little model cabins. His uncle would talk about how he would build these little houses, and people were amazed at the detail that he would put into these houses. As he got older, he started drawing pictures, and you could look at one of the drawings and you could recognize the person that he had drawn. So he's very artistic. He does spend some time in the fur trade. Eventually he becomes a silversmith. And from being a silversmith, making things out of silver and jewelry, he then takes a step and becomes a blacksmith. And when that changes, all these other occupations that he had held before in the fur trade as a silversmith, there were occupations of cash on the barrelhead. You like these silver armlets. Well, that's 10 bucks. You only have 9. Well, you need to go get another buck, come back and see me later, and then we'll trade then. Now he's entered a profession that, of blacksmithing that is an occupation of necessity. You're out plowing in your field, you hit a big rock, you tear your plow up, you've got to get it fixed right then. What this evidence tells me is that Sequoyah must have been a very good blacksmith, because this is where his problem and the problem within the Cherokee society kind of develops for him, is the fact that in the Cherokee language at this point, you give me 2 apples, you give me 2 apples, I have 4 apples. They can say that in the Cherokee language, but they don't have the symbols to write 2 plus 2 equals 4. They don't have the symbols to actually put their Cherokee words on the paper. And so Sequoyah must have had a lot of business, because his problem was he couldn't remember what people owed him. And so what Sequoyah does, and a lot of people don't realize that the first thing that Sequoyah does is he develops a numbering system. And the way that he would use this numbering system is he would take and draw a picture of your face, and out beside your picture, he would then make his mark for however much you owed him. And so then that way, when everybody had harvested their crops and went to market in the fall, Sequoyah could pull out his sheet of paper, he could look at it and say, okay, Harley owes me $3 for that plow I fixed for him back in the spring, so I need to go find Harley and get my $3. And so it was an accounting system. Sequoyah had first created his numbering system, and so 1809 is the year that Sequoyah announces and begins his 12-year journey in trying to create a writing system, which he finishes in 1821. Now we know he tries several different types of writing systems, one of which he kind of thinks to himself, I'll create symbols for words and concepts. And so what he starts doing is basically hieroglyphics, just like the ancient Egyptians. Chinese, Japanese, those languages are based on hieroglyphics. But as he creates all these symbols, he can't remember what all the symbols mean, and he realizes this system's not going to work for him, for the Cherokee. And so he kind of gives up on that particular system. Now, according to Cherokee tradition, Sequoyah was listening one day to just the birds sing. And as he sat listening to the birds' song, he heard repetitive sounds within the song. And that got him to thinking, well, what if I break the sound of the Cherokee language down and give them symbols? So he starts listening to his family, his friends, and he starts pulling out these little sounds that he hears within the language. And eventually what he culls it down to 87 sounds that make up the Cherokee language. And so he gives them symbols. And so a lot of times you'll hear people refer to it as the Cherokee alphabet. It's not an alphabet. We use an alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Those letters go together to create syllables. The syllables go together to create words, and the words create sentences, sentences, paragraphs. Well, where does Sequoyah stop? He stopped at the sound, the syllable. He didn't go quite as far as an alphabet. He stopped at the sound, the syllable. So it's a syllabary, not an alphabet. After he created it, they ended up buying a printing press. And once they got the press, even before the press was purchased, they immediately started translating the Bible, hymns. The Cherokee wrote their own constitution. So a lot of all these different things that they had been working on, they started actually putting in their own language. When they purchased the printing press, they started the Cherokee Phoenix, which was the first bilingual newspaper in the United States. It was the first tribal newspaper in the United States. And so they were able to communicate not only as, individually by letters back and forth without having to physically go and visit someone. Now they had the power to communicate as a nation.